Also in World Business Report, Boeing and Airbus go head-to-head to win orders at the 50th Paris Air Show. That opens today.
First, though, Russia's president has strongly warned the West against arming rebels in Syria. This comes as the G8 summit is about to get underway in Northern Ireland. Well, the disagreement between Russia and other members of the club over how to deal with the Syrian conflict threatens to overshadow the meeting. Our diplomatic editor, Bridget Kendall, reports. There has been more violence in the Syrian capital of Damascus. Activist groups say that a car bomb exploded at a military airport in the west of the city. State television called it a terrorist act, while it's one of the main hubs for distributing the government's supplies. Of course, we'll keep you updated on the situation in Syria and, of course, as ahead of the G8 summit, which begins in Northern Ireland, David Cameron has met with President Putin already, and divisions between the two have been made clear over how to deal with the strategy of Syria. OK, let's find out what's happening in World Business Report. Sally, hello.
We're also very focused on G8, actually, because, of course, the British Prime Minister David Cameron has made it... See you then.
See you then, Sally. Thanks. The country that bridges Europe and Asia appears to be at a political crossroads. On Monday, two big trade unions will hold a strike to protest against police tactics during days of demonstrations. While there were more clashes between police and protesters on Sunday night. Julie Peacock has more. The Czech Republic is in the midst of a political corruption scandal. The Prime Minister says that he'll resign on Monday after his closest aide was charged with abuse of power. She's accused of asking intelligence officials to spy on 3 people, including the Prime Minister's wife, who he's divorcing.
As political scandals go, this one has it all. Bribery, corruption and rumours of a love triangle. Little surprise then that it's caused the Czech Prime Minister to resign and brought down his government. Ministers arrived at their offices to hear their leader step down after some of the most turbulent few days in Czech politics. His resignation came after his closest aide was arrested for bribery and illegally using military intelligence to spy on 3 individuals. One of the targets was the Prime Minister's own wife, who he's currently divorcing. The aide is Jana Nagyová, a woman he is also accused of being romantically linked with. She's now in custody along with some of the former politicians accused of accepting bribes. The Prime Minister claims he knew nothing about the surveillance, and his aide also denies many of the charges against her. But it won't stop the Prime Minister handing in his resignation to the President later on Monday. Tim Allman, BBC News.
Just a few weeks ago, North Korea was threatening a nuclear strike on the United States. But now, Pyongyang says it wants high-level talks with Washington over the nuclear programs of both countries. On Monday, South Korea has responded to the latest diplomatic U-turn from its northern neighbour, saying that it wants concrete steps. Let's find out what all of this means with Lucy Williamson, who's following... She was following events from Seoul, but now, obviously, technical difficulties are hampering us. If we can get the gremlins out of the system, we will get Lucy to you. OK, let's move on to a scandal which is developing in the Yugoslav Tribunal. That's the UN court set up to prosecute those responsible for atrocities committed in the Balkans. An email has emerged, reportedly written by a Danish judge, which alleges that powerful external forces are manipulating the court to protect themselves from future investigations. Well, a British judge now says that an urgent inquiry must be set up to find out if the allegations are true. Anna Holligan sent this report from The Hague. I did promise you that we will talk about North Korea and the relationship it has with South Korea. Lucy Williamson, like magic. Is she going to appear? There she is. Lucy's there. Lucy, good to see you at last. So South Korea says, you know what, it's all very well, Pyongyang, you saying that you want to embark on talks, but show us what you really mean. Put your words into action. Explain this. It's always good to see you. I'm glad we did finally get Lucy in the end. Do stay with us on BBC News. Still to come, we're going to visit the Spanish town that rented its tramway. Let's take a look at some of the UK news now. Moore's murderer Ian Brady. You're watching BBC World News. I'm NAGA MUNCHCETTY. Here are the latest headlines. Now, it's every parent or guardian's worst nightmare, a child that goes missing. It's thought that at least, though, 8 million children disappear around the world every year. This week we're going to speak to 4 families from different parts of the world who've been affected by a missing child. In the first report, Babita Sharma travelled to the south of England to meet Sharon Lee, whose daughter has been missing for more than 30 years. This is Catrice Lee's story.
Catrice's story.
Babita Sharma, BBC News, Gosport, England.
Well, throughout the week we're going to continue with the theme of missing children and have a series on the efforts that many families put in to find their loved one. Let's move on to sport. Let's begin with news that England's Justin Rose has won the US Open in Pennsylvania by 2 strokes after holding his nerve at the Merion Golf Club. The 32-year-old claimed his first major title with no player finishing under par, as Colm Harrison reports. Well done, that man. Let's talk tennis. Roger Federer has won his first tournament of the year after beating Russia's Mikhail Yuzhny in the first 3 sets in the final of the Halle Open in Germany. It's the powered through to win 6-7. There were goals from Pedro and Roberto Soldado, which gave the Confederation Cup's favourites Spain a 2-1 victory over Uruguay in Recife on... That's the sport. Now, 6 years ago, the Spanish coastal town of Vélez Málaga built a €38 million brand new tramway to link it with a nearby beach resort. Then came the economic crisis and the town could no longer afford to run the service. With debts mounting, the mayor has taken a dramatic decision. He's boxing it up and renting it out to Sydney, Australia. Emma Jane Kirby explains. That's certainly one way to try to solve economic problems locally. Do you think it's a good idea? Get in touch with me on Twitter. My address is @BBC NAGA. It's always good to hear your thoughts on the stories we're covering here on BBC World News. Now it's time for the weather, where you are.